Chapter 312. Black Demon King. Kang Chon murmured. A brilliant light flashed in his eyes. He didn't think that this cyan small flag didn't have other uses. His intuition told him that this magic treasure was not simple, giving him a feeling that he wanted to take it for himself. After listening to Wong Tao's words, he talked with Emperor Dan in his mind. During this time, Emperor Dan was also secretly probing the small green flag in Wong Tao's hand, his brows slightly wrinkled. His deep gaze flickered with inexplicable divine splendor. "Elder Dan, can you see anything?" Kang Chon asked in his mind. Dan Emperor contemplated for a moment. He sat on the heaven-reversing cauldron. His divine mind had been exploring the cyan-colored small flag in Wong Tao's hand with his powerful divine mind. At the stage of merging, Wong Tao couldn't detect his presence at all. Unusual. After a long time, Emperor Dan spat out the words. He said in a deep voice, "Get this small flag into your hands. I feel that this is a heavy treasure. Although it is currently unclear about the utility, it is better to stay in your hands first. Get it into your hands." Kang Chon was silent at his words. If he was an enemy, he could totally kill and seize the treasure. But this person in front of him was his fellow disciple. Killing and seizing the treasure was something he definitely couldn't do. Then it could only be an exchange. Kang Chon's eyes flashed, his mind searching and thinking. With the strength and potential that he had shown so far, I'm afraid that senior brother Huang wouldn't easily offend himself, and would even be eager to make friends with himself. So if it was an exchange, it should be very easy. After some pondering in his mind, Kang Chon instantly had an idea. He smiled bashfully and said, "Senior brother Huang, I'm very fond of this small flag. I wonder if I can part with it." "Of course, I won't take it from you for nothing. Just exchange it with military honors." "How much military honors does senior brother Huang need?" Wong Tao obviously didn't expect Kang Chon to be interested in this chicken-ribbed magic treasure. He didn't react at once. And when Kang Chon said that he wanted military honors in exchange, he hastily shook his head and said, "Senior brother Kang Chon is joking. Anyway, this thing is useless in my hands for hundreds of years. Since senior brother likes it, it will be given to senior brother." It was Kang Chon's turn to be surprised. He didn't expect Wong Tao to be so good at talking. In fact, Kang Chon was underestimating his own potential. In Wong Tao's eyes, Kang Chon was already a genius on the level of Zhao Wuji and Dao Yi. As long as he didn't die, his future achievements would be at least on the level of the heavenly Dao Sec sealed elder. This kind of genius, naturally, he had to be properly browbeaten. As an out-of-body stage powerhouse, although Wong Tao also felt that the small flag in his hand was somewhat extraordinary, but it had been hundreds of years, and he hadn't researched the magic use of this magic treasure, indicating that he was not destined for it. So, rather than continue to keep this chicken ribs, it is better to use to flatter Kang Chon. Thinking of this, Wong Tao laughed. "Senior brother need not be mindful of this. The district is just a magic treasure. If it is useful to senior brother, it is also regarded as the chance of this chicken rib. Then, well, many thanks to senior brother Huang." Kang Chon hesitated for a moment, nodded, and accepted the small green-colored flag. However, he still felt a bit overwhelmed, and after contemplating for a while, he remembered the powerful god talisman that he had handed over to Xiao Jin, which was only useful for cultivators at the peak of the outbreathing stage a little below. Wong Tao was at the late out-of-body stage cultivation. If he had that spirit talisman, he would be able to exert the strength of a peak out-of-body stage. Thinking of this, Kang Chon discussed with Xiao Jin and asked him to give that powerful spirit talisman to Wong Tao. Although Xiao Jin was fond of that powerful spirit talisman that could increase his strength, he didn't care too much about it. Anyway, when he broke through the outbreathing stage, that thing would be useless. Wong Tao naturally refused at this. Although he was very fond of that powerful god talisman, he didn't want to ruin the relationship between him and Xiao Jin because of it. However, under Xiao Jin's repeated requests, Huang Tao had no choice but to accept this powerful god talisman. And he sighed a little. In his opinion, this powerful god talisman was far better than that chicken rib. While Huang Tao was putting away the green-colored small flag, causing some mountain vibrations, they didn't notice that a divine thought gently swept by. As this divine thought was very powerful, no one except Emperor Dan noticed it. No wonder I felt that this place had a thick spiritual chi in the beginning. It turns out that there is an extreme spirit stone vein hidden. And looking at this situation, this extreme spirit stone vein is quite big. On top of a huge boulder, Lu Hai's eyes flickered with cold light, and his complexion was filled with gloom. As an outbreathing stage seal king powerhouse who had lived for hundreds of years, his mind was naturally not bad. And from Kang Tion's series of moves as they drove him away, he guessed that this group of Heaven's Path sect's disciples were bound to have something up their sleeves, and so after being defeated by Kang Tion, he did not immediately flee, but instead stared at Kang Tion and the others from a short distance away. Generally speaking, in the battlefield of righteousness and demon, if one encountered an enemy that could not be killed, there was no need to fight at all, as it was completely asking for trouble. When he fought with Kang Tion in just now, Kang Tion didn't even make the slightest gesture of chasing after him regards to his escape. So it was clear that Kang Tion was just going to drive him away. So why drive him away? With this doubt, Lu Hai guessed that Kang Tion and the others must have a plan for this trip. And sure enough, he ended up guessing correctly. He, the extreme spirit stone vein. This vein is quite big. With their little manpower, it will take at least half a year to finish mining. Half a year is enough time for me to recover from my injuries. By then, GG. Lu Hai laughed morosely, an icy cold light flashing in his eyes. What moved him was not this extreme spirit stone vein, but Kang Tion, a genius who was able to reach the Great Circle realm. At the Yuanying stage was definitely the top genius in the cultivation world, and the military merit gained from killing such a genius was more than that of an average harmonization stage powerhouse. In the face of such rich military honors, Lu Hai couldn't manage to remain unmoved. In addition, there was also that top grade treasure weapon in Kang Tion's hand. If he had that blood knife, his strength would definitely be comparable to an outbreathing stage seal emperor powerhouse. This is a fat she-boar. Lu Hai took a deep look at the majestic mountain peak not far away, then sprinted towards his back and disappeared into the trees and jungle. At this moment, a group of Heaven's Path sect disciples, including Little Gold, were mining the vein of extremely high-grade spirit stones underneath the stone cave. All of them were full of excitement, a scene of fervor. Only Kang Tion was brooding on the side. In fact, he was studying that small green-colored flag with Emperor Dan. For his laziness, the crowd didn't have any opinion at all. Leaving, in the reverse heavenly cauldron, the Dan Emperor, who was studying the small cyan-colored flag, suddenly glanced at the direction Hai had left and a mysterious smile flashed in his eyes. As an old monster who had lived for thousands of years, his mind was even more terrifying to the extreme. And without using his divine thoughts to probe, he was able to anticipate that Lu Hai hadn't left, but was secretly observing in the vicinity. This brat Kang Tion is far too poor in terms of his mind, but he can't be blamed. After all, he only has a few decades of experience. Emperor Dan sighed in his heart, compared to those powerful people in the cultivation world who had lived for hundreds of years. Kang Tion, who had only been cultivating for a decade or so, was far too poor in terms of his mind. I hope that this lesson will allow him to grow a little faster, Emperor Dan thought with a flash of his gaze. The reason why he didn't tell Kang Tion was for two purposes. One was to take this opportunity to let Kang Tion grow. After all, Kang Tion couldn't rely on him all the time. Secondly, with his mind, he could expect that Lu Hai would never join with others to kill Kang Tion. The reason is very simple. The devil disciple greed is the biggest. The reason this Lu Hai stays is greed. With his such a greedy character, he will definitely kill Kang Chon alone for the rich military honors and the blood knife. And with Kang Chon's strength, there is no need to be afraid of dealing with an out-of-body stage Seal King. And he knows that Kang Chon still has a killer mace that he has not yet unleashed, and that is the Kang Chon Hegemony Blood's combat state. Once the battle state of Kang Chon Hegemony Blood erupted, Kang Chon's strength was infinitely close to that of an outbreathing stage Seal King, and at that time, defeating an outbreathing stage Seal King powerhouse would not be a problem at all. From the time Lu Hai left behind to observe Kang Chon, he could discover his heart and project what was in his mind. This was the wisdom of a Dan Emperor. Everything was under control. Although the cultivation world is where the strong are honored, but that is under the premise that you are invincible, little fellow. You still have a long way to go, Emperor Dan said in his heart. Kang Chon was the one he had watched grow step by step. Perhaps even he hadn't noticed that without realizing it, he had already taken Kang Chon as his disciple and slowly cultivated him. Elder Dan, do you see anything special? Suddenly, Kang Chon's inquiry interrupted Emperor Dan's contemplation, and his gaze once again converged on the small green-colored flag in his hand. At this moment, while Kang Chon was meditating with his eyes closed, his mind probed into the reverse heavenly cauldron. Keeping in contact with Emperor Dan and studying the small cyan-colored flag together. This object is somewhat similar to the inverse heavenly cauldron. This is the only key point that the old man has discovered. Perhaps you can refine it and get the answer instead. Emperor Dan pondered for a moment and said, as early as the first time he saw the small green-colored flag, he had a familiar feeling, but he didn't know what it was. It wasn't until after taking it into his hands and observing it that he realized that there was an implication of resemblance to the reverse heavenly cauldron within the small cyan-colored flag, which shocked him. Similar to the Against the Heavens cauldron, Kang Chon was surprised. The mystery of the Against the Heavens cauldron was something that he was unable to learn about so far, and although he had already refined the Against the Heavens cauldron, there were very few functions that he could obtain, and he usually only used it as a spatial ring. If he said that the only benefit the reverse heavenly cauldron had given him, it was the heaven escaping hand divine ability that the reverse heavenly cauldron carried on top of it. But Dan Lao, senior brother Huang, said that this thing cannot be refined. Kang Chon didn't finish his sentence. He was interrupted by Dan Huang. He laughed coldly. There is nothing in this world that can't be refined. The fact that it can't be refined is because he doesn't have enough ability and chance, just like this Against the Heavens cauldron, which was in the hands of the old man for 1,000 years. Yet it couldn't be refined, and when it comes to the hands of your brat, a single drop of blood is all it takes. Thinking of this, Dan Emperor is a little depressed. Back then, if he refined the reverse heavenly cauldron, with the defense of the reverse heavenly cauldron and the divine ability of the heavenly capturing hand, he would not have ended up in this situation now. I'm afraid that he would have already finished crossing the apocalypse and ascended to the heavenly realm. Truly, people are more angry than people. When Kang Chon heard this, he couldn't help but touch his nose and muttered, "I'll give it a try then." Saying so, he condensed a drop of his essence blood and dripped it on top of the small green-colored flag. Just like when he had refined the reverse heavenly cauldron, this purple blood instantly merged into the small green flag, which then erupted with a blinding light. Green dragon flag, boom. With a muffled grunt, Kang Chon's mind trembled as he felt a huge wave of information that came from above the cyan small flag. As the cyan-colored small flag erupted with a blinding light, a huge wave of information came from within. Kang Chon's entire body shuddered as he slowly accepted the huge wave of information. This was information about the cyan-colored little flag. From the information, Kang Chon learnt that this small flag was called the Green Dragon Flag, which was refined by a super powerhouse, using the body of a green dragon, with a dragon bone as the flagpole, with dragon skin as the flag body, coloring with dragon blood, with dragon soul as the spirit. This flag gathers a green dragon's body and dragon soul, so it is called Green Dragon Flag. Divine blood as the medium, divine soul catalyzing, the green dragon's wrath. Kang Chon murmured, his eyes filled with shock. This green dragon flag was indeed a heavy treasure. A soul attack type magic treasure of unknown grade. Its strongest attack was the green dragon's wrath, which specialized in attacking the enemy's soul. The power of this move was unimaginable, requiring the flag to be tainted with divine blood, and then catalyzed by the divine soul, in order to explode the blue dragon's wrath and kill the enemy. Divine blood. Where do I find divine blood? Although this flag is extraordinary, as senior brother Huang said, it is a chicken rib, Kang Tian sighed. Although the green dragon flag was much better than the reverse heavenly cauldron. At least the method of catalyzing was explained, but unfortunately it was too difficult.